Imagine this. You're sipping water from a plastic bottle. It's clean, it's cold, and it quenches your thirst. But what if I told you that with every sip, you're also swallowing invisible invaders? Tiny fragments of plastic so small, they can slip past your body's natural defenses, and they're already inside you. This isn't science fiction. This is your daily life. And the shocking truth is, you've likely been ingesting microplastics for years without even realizing it. Let's explore how these microscopic enemies find their way into your body and what that really means. What are microplastics? Microplastics are plastic particles that measure less than 5 millimeters in diameter. That's about the size of a sesame seed, or even smaller. Some microplastics are barely the width of a human hair. And though they're tiny, their impact on your health could be massive. They come in two main forms. Primary microplastics. These are manufactured to be small. Think microbads in facial scrubs or plastic pellets used in industry. Secondary microplastics. These come from the breakdown of larger plastic items, bottles, bags, wrappers, straws, slowly disintegrating due to sunlight, friction, or environmental conditions. Regardless of their origin, these fragments don't dissolve. They persist, they travel, and eventually, they invade. How do microplastics get into your body? They sneak in through three primary doors: what you eat, what you drink, and what you breathe. Let's break it down. 1. You eat them. Your plate may look like it's full of healthy, fresh food, but hidden among those leafy greens or juicy seafood could be invisible bits of plastic. Seafood. Fish and shellfish often ingest microplastics from polluted waters. When you eat them, you're eating what they ate. Salt. Yes, studies have found microplastics in table salt, especially sea salt. Fruits and vegetables. Shockingly, recent research shows that microplastics can be absorbed by plant roots and travel into edible parts of crops. Processed foods. Packaging contamination is a big culprit. Microwave meals, snacks wrapped in plastic, or food heated in plastic containers can all release plastic particles into what you eat. 2. You drink them. Bottled water. One of the most disturbing findings? Bottled water often contains hundreds, sometimes thousands, of microplastic particles per liter. A 2018 study by Orb Media tested 259 bottled waters from 11 brands and found 93% were contaminated. Tap water. Even municipal water isn't entirely safe. A 2017 study revealed that over 80% of tap water samples from across 5 continents contain microplastics. Tea bags. Some premium tea brands use plastic in their tea bags. When steeped in hot water, they release billions of plastic particles into your cup. 3. You breathe them. Air pollution doesn't just carry smog or dust, it carries plastics. Indoor environments are particularly problematic. You breathe in fibers shed from synthetic clothing, carpets, curtains, and furniture. Microplastics float in the air around you, settle on surfaces, and become part of the invisible cloud of particles that fills your lungs with every breath. In fact, some studies suggest we inhale tens of thousands of microplastic particles each year. And once in the lungs, some of these particles may never leave. Microplastics found in the human body, the hard evidence. Until recently, the idea that plastic could end up in the human body was theoretical. But today, it's backed by science, and it's deeply concerning. In your blood. In 2022, researchers in the Netherlands made headlines after discovering microplastics in human blood for the first time. The study found that plastic particles were present in nearly 80% of the samples tested. The most common plastics? PET, used in bottles, polystyrene, used in food containers, and polyethylene, used in bags and packaging. This suggests that microplastics don't just pass through your system. They may be absorbed into your bloodstream, traveling throughout your entire body. In your lungs. Another breakthrough came when scientists analyzed human lung tissue and found microplastics embedded deep in the respiratory system. That means the air you breathe isn't just polluted. It may be physically coating the inside of your lungs with plastic dust. In your placenta. Perhaps the most shocking discovery yet came in 2020 when microplastics were found in the placentas of unborn babies. Researchers analyzed placental tissue and found plastic particles in multiple regions, including the side that interacts directly with the fetus. What does this mean? It means microplastics are crossing biological barriers we once thought were impenetrable. The average person ingests plastic daily, without knowing. According to a 2019 report by the Worldwide Fund for Nature, WWF, and the University of Newcastle, the average person could be consuming about 5 grams of plastic each week, roughly the weight of a credit card. Let that sink in. You may be swallowing a credit card's worth of plastic every 7 days. This plastic comes from bottled water, food, air, and even hygiene products. Over time, this adds up, creating a toxic burden your body was never designed to carry. Why doesn't your body remove them? Unlike food or natural contaminants, microplastics aren't organic. Your body doesn't recognize them as digestible or safe. It can't break them down or eliminate them efficiently. Some plastic particles may pass through harmlessly. Others, however, become trapped in tissue, organs, or fat cells. Over time, they can accumulate, triggering immune responses, inflammation, and oxidative stress. Worse, these particles often carry toxic additives, chemicals like phthalates, bisphenol A, BPA, flame retardants, and heavy metals. These additives can leach into your body and disrupt your hormonal system, alter gene expression, or damage cellular function. But if I can't see it or feel it, why should I worry? That's the trap. Microplastics don't cause immediate pain. There's no rash, no fever, no sudden symptom that screams, you've got plastic inside you. They work in silence. Slowly, cumulatively. They may sit dormant for years, while quietly inflaming your cells, weakening your immunity, and altering your health from the inside out. By the time the symptoms appear, chronic fatigue, hormonal imbalance, unexplained inflammation, digestive issues, the damage may already be well underway. You can't avoid plastics entirely. They're everywhere. But understanding how microplastics enter your body is the first step toward protecting yourself. Because once you know the enemy, you can begin to fight back. You now know that microplastics are not just in the environment, they're in you. But what happens after they breach your defenses? Once they enter your body through your food, water, or air, what do these microscopic invaders do? This is where the story takes an even darker turn. Microplastics don't just sit idly in your gut. Many of them travel. They migrate. They burrow into tissues, circulate in your blood, and quietly wreak havoc on your biological systems, sometimes for years before you ever feel the effects. Let's explore how this infiltration unfolds, and why it's far more dangerous than anyone imagined. Microplastics don't just pass through, they penetrate. For years, scientists believed most microplastics would simply pass through the digestive tract and exit the body. But growing research shows that many microplastics are small enough to cross internal barriers, and once they do, the body has no blueprint for removing them. Here's how it happens. 1. Crossing the gut barrier. The human gut is designed to absorb nutrients while keeping harmful substances out. It has a specialized layer of cells and tight junctions that act like a high-security checkpoint. But microplastics, especially the tiniest ones called nanoplastics, are slippery and stealthy. Nanoplastics, typically smaller than 100 nanometers, can cross the gut lining through a process called transcytosis, where particles are engulfed by cells and moved across barriers. Once across, they can enter the lymphatic system and the bloodstream, giving them access to virtually every organ. A 2021 study published in Environmental Science and Technology found that plastic particles can not only pass through intestinal cells, but also induce inflammatory responses and oxidative stress, early warning signs of tissue damage. 2. Circulating through the bloodstream. Once microplastics enter the bloodstream, they become systemic. Like nutrients or medications, they hitch a ride on your circulatory system and reach vital organs, your liver, kidneys, heart, brain, and even reproductive organs. In the 2022 Dutch study that detected plastics in human blood, researchers noted that these particles could bind to proteins and cell membranes, potentially altering how your cells function or even communicate. What does this mean? Plastic particles can interfere with hormone receptors. They can activate immune responses, leading to low-grade chronic inflammation. They may mimic or block essential biological signals, a concept known as endocrine disruption. 3. Accumulating in organs and fat tissue. Your body doesn't have enzymes or mechanisms to break down plastic. So once inside, These particles often accumulate, especially in tissues that naturally store toxins or filter blood. Let's take a closer look. Liver. As your primary detox organ, the liver filters blood and removes toxins. But when overwhelmed by microplastics, it may suffer from inflammation and cellular damage. A 2020 animal study showed that mice exposed to microplastics developed liver fibrosis, a dangerous buildup of scar tissue. Kidneys, responsible for filtering waste from the blood. Kidneys exposed to microplastics may show signs of impaired function, including oxidative stress and damaged tubules. Fat tissue. Plastics are lipophilic, they're attracted to fat. Some studies suggest microplastics can accumulate in adipose tissue, where they may interfere with metabolic processes and hormonal balance. Lungs. Inhaled particles lodge deep within the lungs. Recent studies using autopsied lung tissue found microplastics embedded in both upper and lower regions, sometimes surrounded by inflamed tissue. Brain. While research here is in its early stages, some animal studies suggest that ultrafine plastics can cross the blood-brain barrier, potentially leading to neuroinflammation, cognitive changes, and disrupted neurotransmitter function. Microplastics don't come alone. They carry toxic companions. The danger of microplastics doesn't stop at the particle itself. They often act like sponges, absorbing and concentrating harmful chemicals from their environment. These include bisphenol A, BPA, linked to hormone disruption, cancer, and neurological issues. Phthalates, chemicals used to soften plastics, known to interfere with male and female reproductive systems. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, potential carcinogens found in pollution. Heavy metals, like lead, cadmium, and mercury, which can cause neurological and kidney damage. Once inside your body, microplastics may leach these toxic chemicals into your tissues or deliver them directly into your cells, bypassing your natural detox systems. Your body's response, a cascade of biological disturbance. Microplastics trigger a range of biological responses, many of which mirror the early stages of chronic disease. Inflammation. Your immune system identifies plastic particles as foreign invaders. In response, it activates inflammation. While this can be helpful short-term, chronic exposure leads to persistent low-grade inflammation, a known driver of aging and disease. In fact, chronic inflammation is associated with heart disease, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, oxidative stress. Microplastics can generate reactive oxygen species, ROS, unstable molecules that damage your cell's DNA, proteins, and membranes. This process, called oxidative stress, accelerates cellular aging and weakens your defenses. Disrupted cell communication. Plastic particles may block or mimic hormonal signals. This is especially concerning with endocrine-disrupting chemicals, EDCs, which can alter gene expression, reproduction, and growth. Examples include impaired insulin signaling, increased risk of diabetes, disrupted thyroid function, fatigue, weight gain, estrogen mimicry, increased cancer risk, infertility. Can microplastics change your DNA? While direct DNA mutations by plastics haven't been definitively proven in humans, preliminary studies in animals and cell cultures raise serious concerns. Some studies show that plastic particles can alter gene expression by interfering with epigenetic markers, disrupt cell division, potentially leading to abnormal growth, damage mitochondrial DNA, impairing energy production. Over time, this could contribute to cellular dysfunction, accelerated aging, or cancer development. What about the brain? This is one of the most unsettling possibilities. Animal studies have shown that micro and nanoplastics can cross the blood-brain barrier in mice. Once inside the brain, these particles may disrupt neurotransmitter signaling, alter behavior and cognition, induce neuroinflammation, a known risk factor for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. We don't yet know how much of this applies to humans, but the early signs are deeply troubling. Synergistic effects, the plastics chemical cocktail. What makes microplastics so uniquely dangerous is not just their individual toxicity, but their ability to act as delivery vehicles for other toxins. This chemical cocktail effect amplifies harm in unpredictable ways. A plastic particle soaked in flame retardants, exposed to ultraviolet light, and lodged in human tissue may behave completely differently than an isolated plastic bead. That's why even small doses, previously thought to be safe, can become hazardous under certain conditions. Your body's defense systems are being overwhelmed. You have systems in place to detox and repair your liver, kidneys, lymphatic system, immune response. But these systems evolved in a world without plastic. Now, they're under attack by a material they've never encountered in evolutionary history, and they're struggling to keep up. The result? A body that's inflamed, fatigued, hormonally unbalanced, and vulnerable to chronic disease, even if you can't immediately feel it. A crisis you can't see, but can no longer ignore. We tend to think of plastic as inert, harmless, or merely an environmental nuisance. But inside your body, it's something else entirely. It doesn't break down. It doesn't belong. And it doesn't leave quietly. This is not just a pollution problem. It's a human health crisis, unfolding at the microscopic level, inside millions of people, without symptoms until it's too late. You now understand how microplastics invade your body, and how they quietly infiltrate your organs, circulate in your bloodstream, and disturb your biological systems. But here's the truly alarming part. Their damage is not just theoretical. The consequences are already playing out in the health of millions, many of whom have no idea that the symptoms they're experiencing could be linked to plastics hiding inside them. Let's explore the growing body of evidence connecting microplastics to real, measurable harm in human health. You might be surprised and disturbed by what science is beginning to uncover. 1. Endocrine disruption, the hormonal havoc. Your body runs on hormones. These chemical messengers regulate your sleep, appetite, mood, fertility, metabolism, and even immune responses. But microplastics, and the chemicals they carry, can throw your hormonal system into chaos. Many plastics contain endocrine-disrupting chemicals, EDCs, like bisphenol A, BPA, found in bottles, cans, and containers. Phthalates, used to soften plastic packaging and personal care products. Polybrominated diphenyl ethers, PBDs, flame retardants used in electronics and furniture. These chemicals mimic or block hormones, especially estrogen, testosterone, thyroid hormones, and insulin. Health consequences. Infertility, disruption in sex hormone signaling can reduce sperm count, ovulation, and reproductive success. Early puberty, especially in girls, due to estrogen-like activity of plastics. Thyroid dysfunction, leading to fatigue, weight gain, brain fog. Insulin resistance, increasing the risk of type 2 diabetes. In one study published in Nature Reviews Endocrinology, researchers linked EDCs from plastics to an epidemic of metabolic and reproductive disorders, many of which are rising globally without a clear explanation. 2. Gut health and microbiome imbalance. Your gut is home to trillions of bacteria, collectively known as the gut microbiome, which are vital for digestion, immunity, and even brain function. But microplastics don't just pass through the gut, they alter it. Animal studies show that plastic exposure reduces beneficial bacteria like lactobacillus, increases harmful bacteria associated with inflammation, disrupts gut lining integrity, known as leaky gut, promotes inflammatory bowel conditions. In a 2021 review published in Science of the Total Environment, researchers concluded that microplastics may contribute to gut dysbiosis, a state of microbial imbalance associated with autoimmune diseases, obesity, mental illness, and even cancer. 3. Fertility and reproductive damage. Let's be blunt. Microplastics could be silently sabotaging human reproduction. In a landmark 2023 study, scientists found microplastics in human semen for the first time. This followed earlier findings of microplastics in ovarian tissue and the placenta, suggesting that no part of the reproductive system is safe. Effects observed in studies. Lower sperm count and motility. Abnormal sperm morphology. Reduced egg quality. Impaired embryo implantation. Increased miscarriage risk. Animal models exposed to plastics during pregnancy show disrupted fetal development, altered hormone levels, and developmental delays in offspring. Could this be part of the reason why global fertility rates are declining? Many experts think so, and they're sounding the alarm. 4. Lung and respiratory diseases. You don't have to work in a factory to breathe plastic. From carpet fibers to dust from synthetic clothes, the air you inhale indoors and outdoors may contain thousands of plastic fragments. These particles can irritate lung tissue, causing chronic inflammation, activate immune cells, triggering autoimmune reactions, worsen asthma, bronchitis, and COPD, carry attached chemicals deep into alveoli, tiny lung sacs. In 2022, researchers published the first study to identify microplastics in human lung tissue collected from living patients. They found plastic particles embedded in over 80% of samples, including types commonly found in packaging and textiles. The long-term consequences? Unknown. But early signs point toward increased risk of chronic respiratory disease and lung cancer. 5. Cardiovascular effects. Your blood vessels are sensitive to inflammation, oxidative stress, and toxin exposure, all of which microplastics promote. Emerging studies suggest that exposure to plastic particles and associated chemicals may increase blood pressure, promote atherosclerosis, plaque buildup in arteries, disrupt heart rhythm, increase risk of blood clots and stroke. A 2023 study published in Environmental Pollution found that microplastics could induce endothelial dysfunction, damage to the inner lining of blood vessels, a key step in heart disease. In simple terms, plastics in your bloodstream may literally be hardening your arteries. 6. Immune system breakdown. Your immune system is your body's army, but it can't fight what it doesn't recognize, or what constantly provokes it without resolution. Microplastics activate immune cells like macrophages and neutrophils, trigger chronic inflammation, cause immune cell exhaustion, disrupt cytokine signaling, the immune command center. Over time, this creates a state of immune dysfunction where your body may overreact, autoimmunity, underreact, infections, cancer risk, fail to regulate inflammation, chronic disease. Studies in animals have shown that prolonged microplastic exposure reduces white blood cell counts, weakens antibody responses, and increases vulnerability to viral infections. 7. Cancer risk. Here's the most chilling question. Can microplastics cause cancer? While the direct link in humans hasn't been proven yet, several red flags are waving. Many microplastic particles contain known carcinogens like styrene, benzene, and phthalates. Plastic particles cause DNA damage, oxidative stress, and chronic inflammation, all known cancer triggers. Animal studies have shown tumors forming after long-term plastic exposure. In a 2022 review, the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health warned that microplastics may act as co-carcinogens, not causing cancer alone, but accelerating it when combined with other risks like poor diet or pollution. 8. Neurotoxicity and brain health. One of the most disturbing areas of microplastic research is the brain. Studies in mice have shown that nanoplastics can cross the blood-brain barrier, a protective shield that keeps toxins out of your brain. Once inside, plastics can alter levels of dopamine and serotonin, cause neuroinflammation, trigger anxiety-like or depression-like behavior, interfere with memory and learning. Though human data is still emerging, the implications are massive. Could microplastics contribute to rising rates of cognitive decline, dementia, ADHD, or depression? We don't know for sure, but many neuroscientists are starting to investigate. It's not just one system, it's all of them. Here's what makes microplastic exposure so dangerous. It doesn't target just one organ or system. It attacks the entire network, hormonally, neurologically, immunologically, reproductively, and genetically. And the scariest part? You might not feel it happening. There is no single symptom of plastic poisoning. Instead, the damage emerges gradually through fatigue, inflammation, allergies, brain fog, infertility, blood sugar issues, or premature aging. By the time you're diagnosed with a chronic illness, the microscopic culprits may already have been inside you for decades. Final thoughts on part 3. This is no longer a problem for future generations. It's happening right now, and it's affecting every system in your body, from your gut to your genes. Microplastics are not just a passive pollutant. They are a biological force, altering life at the cellular and molecular level. So what can you do about it? Not all bodies are affected equally by microplastics. While everyone is exposed, young or old, rich or poor, some groups are more vulnerable than others. In these individuals, the damage from microplastics may be faster, deeper, and more lasting. The reason? Their defenses are weaker, their systems are still developing or already declining, and their ability to detox or repair is limited. Let's examine who's most at risk in this global health crisis and why. 1. Babies and unborn children, the first victims. If there's one fact that should stop the world in its tracks, it's this. Microplastics have been found in human placentas. This groundbreaking discovery in 2020 revealed that plastic particles had made their way into the interface between mother and baby, the one place we believed was safest. Researchers in Italy found microplastic fragments in 4 of 6 placentas tested. These particles had come from food packaging, cosmetics, and even polluted air. The implications are devastating. What this means: plastics may cross the placental barrier. They may interfere with fetal development, but they could affect gene expression, organ growth, and immune system programming. Babies exposed to plastics before birth may carry the effects for life. Microplastics in infant products. After birth, exposure doesn't stop, it accelerates. Baby bottles made of polypropylene release millions of microplastic particles into formula, especially when heated. Plastic feeding spoons, bowls, sippy cups, all leach plastic into food. Disposable diapers shed fibers that may reach the skin and mucous membranes. Plastic toys and pacifiers introduce tiny fragments as they're chewed or sterilized. A 2020 study estimated that a formula-fed infant could ingest over 1 million microplastic particles per day from bottle feeding alone. Effects on early development. Babies have immature detox systems. Their blood-brain barrier, gut lining, and liver are still developing. Microplastic exposure in early life has been linked in animal studies to impaired brain development, hormonal imbalances, altered gut microbiota, slower immune maturation, increased allergy risk. In short, plastic exposure in the first 1,000 days of life may shape a child's long-term health, making them more vulnerable to obesity, asthma, autoimmune conditions, and neurodevelopmental disorders like ADHD. 2. Pregnant women, protecting 2 lives at once. Pregnancy is a time of transformation and extreme vulnerability. Hormones surge, organs shift. The immune system is finely tuned to protect both mother and fetus. Microplastics threaten that delicate balance. They carry endocrine disruptors, which can interfere with estrogen and progesterone balance, disrupt implantation or fetal development, contribute to preterm birth or low birth weight. One study found microplastics in 100% of placental tissue samples examined, raising serious questions about the silent risks pregnant women are unknowingly exposed to. 3. Children. Higher exposure, weaker defenses. Children are not just small adults. Their organs are developing, their bodies metabolize differently, and their behaviors increase their exposure. Why they're more exposed? They crawl, play on floors, and put hands or objects in their mouths, constantly exposed to dust and fibers. Their breathing zones are lower, closer to the ground where plastic dust settles. They consume more food, water, and air per kilogram of body weight than adults, making each exposure more concentrated. A 2023 study found significantly higher levels of microplastic metabolites in children's urine compared to adults, suggesting both greater exposure and greater internal burden. Potential health risks in children. Disrupted puberty timing. Behavioral changes linked to neurotoxicity. Increased asthma and allergies. Weakened gut microbiome development. The worst part? These exposures happen during critical windows of development, when even small chemical signals can cause long-lasting shifts in how the body grows and functions. 4. The elderly. Declining defenses, rising risk. Aging bodies are more fragile, and unfortunately, microplastics may accelerate the aging process from within. Challenges the elderly face. Slower liver and kidney detoxification. Increased inflammation, inflammaging. Weakened immune response. A greater susceptibility to endocrine disruption. The chronic exposure to plastics over a lifetime may accumulate in fat tissues and organs. Over time, this burden can weaken immunity, increase vulnerability to cardiovascular disease, raise cancer risk, exacerbate cognitive decline. Elderly individuals with existing health conditions, like diabetes, heart disease, or dementia, may be especially susceptible to plastic-induced stress. 5. People with chronic illness, a hidden aggravator. Microplastics don't cause every disease, but in people who already have a chronic illness, they may worsen symptoms, accelerate progression, undermine treatment. Take a few examples. A. Autoimmune disorders. Plastic particles activate the immune system. In those with autoimmune diseases like lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, or MS, this can provoke flares and inflammation. B. Diabetes. EDCs and plastic interfere with insulin signaling. People with prediabetes or type 2 diabetes may find their blood sugar control worsens due to microplastic exposure. C. IBS or Crohn's disease. Plastic fragments may aggravate gut inflammation and increase intestinal permeability, leaky gut, compounding existing digestive issues. D. Cancer patients. Plastic-associated chemicals like BPA and phthalates are classified as probable carcinogens. They may also interfere with chemotherapy or hormone-based treatments. In short, microplastics may not cause the disease, but they very likely intensify the damage. 6. Low-income communities, an unjust burden. The plastic crisis is also a justice issue. People in low-income communities often live closer to landfills or incinerators, have higher exposure to polluted air and water, depend on cheap plastic packaged foods, lack access to glass, stainless steel, or safer alternatives. In many developing countries, burning plastic waste is common. This releases micro and nanoplastics into the air, where they are inhaled, especially by children. The result? These communities may face a higher toxic burden with fewer resources to respond. Environmental health researchers now warn that plastic pollution is a driver of inequality, contributing to higher rates of asthma, cancer, infertility, and developmental disorders in already at-risk populations. 7. Occupational exposure, workers on the front lines. Certain jobs come with higher risk of inhaling or ingesting plastic particles. Textile factory workers, exposed to synthetic fibers. Construction workers, insulation, plastic dust. Food packaging and processing workers. Plastics manufacturing employees. Waste management and recycling workers. In some industries, airborne plastic particles are present at levels 100x higher than normal environments. Studies have found increased respiratory illness, hormonal changes, and inflammation markers in these workers, often with minimal protective regulations. 8. People living near the ocean, the plastic fallout zone. If you live in a coastal area, you may assume the ocean breeze is clean and healthy. But studies have shown that waves breaking on plastic-polluted beaches can aerosolize microplastics into the air. A 2021 study published in Nature Communications found that sea spray can carry microplastic particles up to several kilometers inland, potentially contaminating both air and crops. This means people who live near coastlines or farm near polluted waters may unknowingly breathe or eat more plastic than others. Why this matters: the silent widening of health gaps. Microplastic exposure is not distributed equally, and as we uncover more about its dangers, it becomes clear that this invisible crisis is widening existing health disparities. The rich can afford glass containers, water filters, and organic food. The poor often cannot. Vulnerable populations, like babies, seniors, and the sick, carry the heaviest burden, yet they have the least protection. This isn't just a personal health issue. It's a public health emergency, one that demands urgent action, not only from individuals, but from policymakers, industries, and global leaders. The facts are there. Microplastics are in our food, water, air, and bodies. They're disrupting hormones, damaging organs, and affecting the health of even unborn babies. And yet, most people still don't know. Why? How is it possible that one of the greatest modern health threats is so poorly understood, so underreported, so rarely discussed? It's not because the science is unclear. It's not because the danger is small. It's because a web of silence surrounds this issue. In this part, we pull back the curtain. 1. The plastic industry's influence, a familiar playbook. If all of this sounds eerily familiar, it should. The plastic industry has borrowed its playbook from tobacco, oil, sugar, and chemical manufacturers. Deny harm, fund doubt, delay regulation, shift blame to consumers. Despite decades of internal knowledge about plastic pollution, companies have invested heavily in protecting profits over public health. Example: A 2023 expose in The Guardian revealed internal documents from major plastic manufacturers showing awareness, since the 1970s, of the growing microplastic problem. Instead of warning the public, they launched campaigns promoting recycling and personal responsibility while expanding production. This strategy works. It muddies the conversation and delays systemic change. 2. Lack of government regulation. Too new, too complex. Another major reason microplastic health threats stay hidden? Governments have failed to act. Most countries do not regulate microplastic content in food, water, or air. Do not require labeling for plastic packaging risks. Do not fund public education campaigns on the topic. Have no legal limit for plastic content in bottled water or formula. Why? Regulators often claim the science is still emerging. We don't have enough human studies yet. There's no standard testing method. These are excuses used to justify inaction while waiting for overwhelming proof. But by the time proof is undeniable, the damage is already done. 3. Scientific studies face pressure and censorship. It's hard to fight what you can't measure, and even harder when researchers face pressure not to dig too deep. Here's what's happening. Scientists studying microplastics often struggle to secure funding, especially if their work implicates major industries. Some researchers have reported pressure from sponsors to downplay findings. Journals may hesitate to publish controversial studies that criticize consumer products. In short, the science is advancing, but slowly. Not because the answers aren't there, but because there are powerful forces slowing the questions. 4. The media's role, out of sight, out of mind. Mainstream media plays a critical role in shaping public awareness. And yet, microplastic health dangers are rarely headline news. Why not? It's invisible. There are no dramatic images of microplastics in your blood. It lacks a villain the way oil spills or chemical accidents do. It feels too overwhelming, too interconnected with everything we consume. Most importantly, plastic companies are major advertisers. Media outlets that rely on ad dollars from beverage companies, food producers, or petrochemical giants may avoid digging too deep into stories that could hurt sponsors. That's why you're more likely to hear about a celebrity's diet than the fact that your body may be full of plastic. 5. Plastic profits are too big to fail. We live in a plastic economy. Everything, from water bottles to iPhones, medical devices to food packaging, is built on plastic. And the companies producing it are some of the most powerful in the world. Consider this. The global plastic market was worth over $600 billion in 2024 and growing. Most plastic comes from fossil fuels, so big oil has a vested interest in expanding plastic production as fuel demand declines. By 2050, it's estimated that plastic production could account for 20% of global oil use. That means powerful lobbies have every reason to suppress negative press, avoid regulation, and stall reform. In their eyes, your health is collateral damage. 6. Consumers are blamed instead of systems being fixed. Perhaps the cleverest trick the plastic industry ever pulled was convincing us that we are the problem. You've heard it. Just recycle better. Bring your own straw. Buy a reusable water bottle. While these steps are useful, they distract from the core issue. The world is drowning in plastic because of production, not consumption. Over 90% of plastic waste has never been recycled. Why? Because many plastics are not recyclable or the infrastructure doesn't exist. But by pushing personal responsibility, companies avoid taking accountability for the flood of plastic they unleash daily. 7. It's not just the plastic industry, it's all of us. The real reason this crisis stays hidden? Because we're all complicit. Plastic is cheap. It's convenient. It's everywhere. We wrap our food in it. We store our leftovers in it. We wear it, sit on it, brush our teeth with it. Even hospitals rely on it to save lives. To confront the microplastic crisis means to confront a painful truth. Modern life is built on plastic. That's a hard pill to swallow, for individuals, companies, and governments alike. So instead, we pretend it's not that bad. We keep scrolling. We keep sipping. We keep swallowing. 8. Science is catching up, but will change come in time? Despite the suppression and denial, the tide is beginning to turn. More universities are launching microplastic research labs. New tools are being developed to detect particles in blood and organs. Scientists are publishing increasingly urgent papers linking plastics to infertility, inflammation, and disease. Public awareness is growing through documentaries and online movements. But the question remains, will we act fast enough? Because every year we wait, another 100 million tons of plastic enters the environment. Another 10 billion bottles are produced. Another generation of children grows up with invisible toxins in their blood. You've learned how microplastics have invaded your body, silently, steadily, and systemically. You've seen the science. You've uncovered the cover-up. Now it's time to act. Because even though microplastics are everywhere, you are not powerless. In this section, we'll explore practical, research-backed steps you can take to reduce your exposure, protect your health, and push for real change. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. Let's begin. 1. Rethink your water source. One of the largest sources of microplastic exposure is bottled water. A study published in Frontiers in Chemistry found that over 90% of bottled water samples tested contained microplastic contamination, some with thousands of particles per liter. What you can do: switch to filtered tap water. Use a high-quality water filter, especially those with activated carbon and reverse osmosis, which are proven to remove microplastics. Brands like Berkey, Aquasana, or Zero Water are commonly used. Avoid plastic bottles. Choose stainless steel or glass water containers. Never reuse single-use plastic bottles. The more they break down, the more particles they shed. Avoid drinking from hot plastic. Heat increases plastic leaching. Don't leave plastic bottles in hot cars or microwave food in plastic containers. 2. Choose safer food storage and preparation. Your kitchen can either protect your health or increase your exposure to plastic. When plastic and heat come together, plastic chemicals are more likely to migrate into your food. What you can do: use glass, ceramic, or stainless steel containers, especially for hot food or long-term storage. Never microwave plastic. Even containers labeled microwave safe can release plastic particles under heat stress. Let food cool before covering it with plastic wrap. Avoid pre-packaged microwave meals in plastic trays. Transfer food to a glass dish before reheating. Choose whole foods. The more processed and packaged your food, the more chances for contamination. 3. Reduce plastic in the kitchen and pantry. Small plastic sources in your kitchen often go unnoticed. What you can do: replace plastic utensils, spatulas, and cutting boards with bamboo, wood, or stainless steel alternatives. Buy dry goods in bulk using your own glass or cloth containers. Choose fresh produce over plastic-wrapped fruits and vegetables. Limit canned food. Many cans are lined with plastics that can leach into food. 4. Upgrade your cleaning routine. Even your laundry and household cleaning habits can introduce microplastics into the environment and your body. Synthetic fabrics like polyester and nylon shed microfibers every time they are washed. What you can do: install a microfiber filter in your washing machine. Devices like the Guppy Friend bag or Coraball can capture fibers before they reach wastewater systems. Wash synthetic clothes less frequently and in cold water to reduce fiber shedding. Choose natural fiber clothing, such as cotton, hemp, or wool. Use vacuum cleaners with HEPA filters to reduce the amount of microplastic particles in household dust. Clean with damp cloths instead of dry dusters. Wet cleaning helps trap microplastics instead of sending them into the air. 5. Choose safe personal care products. You may be applying plastic to your body every day through cosmetics and toiletries. Some personal care items contain microbads, while others are stored in plastic that can degrade over time. What you can do: read ingredient labels and avoid products that list polyethylene or polypropylene. These are common in exfoliating scrubs, toothpaste, and some cosmetics. Switch to bar soap and solid shampoo bars. These reduce both microplastic ingredients and plastic packaging. Use glass or metal containers for do-it-yourself skincare recipes. Look for certifications such as plastic-free or no microbads when shopping. 6. Be mindful of what you breathe indoors. Microplastics are not just in food and water, they're also in the air, especially indoors. Studies estimate that people inhale thousands of microplastic particles per year from indoor air. What you can do: open windows daily to improve airflow and reduce the concentration of airborne microplastic fibers. Use air purifiers with high-efficiency particulate air filters, which are effective at capturing plastic fibers. Avoid carpets and curtains made of synthetic materials like polyester and nylon. These shed over time. Clean surfaces with damp cloths. This prevents microplastic particles from being kicked back into the air. 7. Change how you shop. Your purchasing choices have more power than you realize. What you can do: bring your own reusable bags, containers, and produce sacks. Shop at bulk stores and farmers markets that allow refilling and low-waste packaging. Support brands that use compostable, paper, glass, or aluminum packaging instead of plastic. Avoid individually wrapped portions, plastic-wrapped produce, and excessive packaging. Buy fewer synthetic clothes and focus on quality over quantity. Fast fashion is a major contributor to microfiber pollution. 8. Start detoxing from within. Even with the best prevention, you may already have microplastics in your body. Supporting your body's detox systems is crucial. What you can do: eat fiber-rich foods such as oats, flax seeds, leafy greens, and lentils. Fiber binds to toxins in the digestive system and helps eliminate them. Stay well hydrated with clean, filtered water. Adequate hydration supports the liver and kidneys in detoxifying the body. Support liver function by including cruciferous vegetables like broccoli and Brussels sprouts in your meals. Garlic and turmeric are also liver supportive. Sweat regularly. Use a sauna or exercise to help eliminate toxins through the skin. Prevent constipation. Regular bowel movements help prevent toxins from being reabsorbed into the bloodstream. Prioritize good quality sleep. The body, especially the brain, detoxifies most effectively during deep sleep. 9. Get involved and advocate for change. Personal action is powerful, but community action shapes the future. What you can do: support local or national bans on single-use plastics by contacting your representatives or signing petitions. Choose to spend your money with companies that are committed to sustainability and plastic reduction. Volunteer or donate to organizations that are working to reduce plastic pollution, such as Plastic Pollution Coalition or Surfrider Foundation. Educate your friends, family, or community about microplastics. Awareness is the first step to change. Demand clear labeling on consumer goods so people know what materials they are consuming or using. 10. Progress, not perfection. You cannot eliminate every source of plastic in your life, and that's okay. Trying to do everything at once is overwhelming. But small, intentional steps add up over time. Even reducing plastic exposure by 20% can significantly reduce your long-term health risks. Every time you choose glass instead of plastic. Every time you bring your own bag. Every time you prepare a meal without plastic packaging. You're making a difference. You're taking back control. You're protecting your body and the planet, one conscious decision at a time. The world is waking up. For decades, we marveled at plastic's convenience, its flexibility, its affordability. We built cities with it. We wrapped our food, our furniture, our very bodies in it. But now we know the truth. That convenience has come with a cost we are only just beginning to understand. And though the story of plastic is still being written, a new chapter is forming, one that demands vision, responsibility, and radical honesty. Let us explore what must happen now, for science, for society, and for each of us. Science must catch up to reality. Research on microplastics is still in its infancy. We know these particles are in our food, water, air, and blood. We know they carry harmful chemicals, trigger inflammation, and disrupt cells. But we do not yet know the full extent of their damage, especially over decades. To truly understand the health implications, we need long-term, large-scale studies that track microplastic exposure and disease over time. We must also fund new testing technologies. Today, there is no simple blood or urine test that tells you how much plastic is in your body. We are flying blind. And just as important, we need studies not funded by plastic manufacturers. Because when profit drives science, truth is often the casualty. We need independent research, published in transparent journals, guided by the question, what is best for human health? Not, how can we sell more plastic? Until then, the medical community is fighting an invisible enemy with one hand tied behind its back. Doctors must be trained to recognize environmental toxins. Most doctors receive little to no training on environmental toxins, let alone microplastics. Medical education has focused on treating disease, not preventing exposure. But as the evidence grows, this must change. Doctors need to be aware of the early signs of plastic-related toxicity. They must learn how to support detox pathways, advise on safer materials, and guide patients in reducing exposure. They must also speak out, publicly and professionally, about the connection between plastic and chronic disease. Because if our healers remain silent, the harm will only grow. Governments must legislate with courage. Voluntary industry pledges are not enough. We have relied for too long on corporations to do the right thing while they profit from pollution. Governments must step in, not with timid warnings, but with bold legislation. Ban single-use plastics that have safer alternatives. Mandate clear labeling on plastic packaging. Invest in large-scale recycling systems that actually work. Fund cleanup efforts, particularly in vulnerable communities. Hold polluters accountable, not with fines they can easily pay, but with policies that force change. And we must stop subsidizing plastic production with taxpayer money, because we are literally funding our own contamination. Courageous policy is not anti-business. It is pro-health, pro-planet, pro-future. Industry must innovate, not greenwash. We do not need more plastic in new shapes. We need new materials altogether. Companies have the technology and capital to create safer alternatives. Bioplastics, reusable systems, compostable packaging. But too many are instead spending their energy on greenwashing, marketing campaigns that make them appear eco-friendly without meaningful change. The future must belong to those who innovate with integrity. True sustainability will not come from pretending to be better. It will come from being better. And consumers must demand it by refusing to support brands that treat plastic pollution as someone else's problem. Communities must build local solutions. Microplastic pollution is global, but some of the best solutions are local. Farmers markets that reduce packaging, schools that teach kids about environmental health, neighborhoods that share tools, repair items, and compost together, cities that invest in water filtration, plastic-free public spaces, and strong recycling systems. When change starts at the grassroots, it spreads outward. You do not need $1 billion budget to make a difference. You need people who care, work together, and refuse to look away. The public must stay informed and engaged. Ignorance is the soil in which microplastic pollution has grown for decades. But now that the truth is surfacing, we must not let it sink back into silence. Education is power. When you learn what's in your water, your food, your home, you can make better choices. When you understand how corporations and governments are responding, you can hold them accountable. Stay curious. Ask questions. Share what you learn. Join movements. Attend meetings. Write letters. Because silence helps plastic grow stronger. But your voice can crack the system. Our habits must shift, slowly, steadily, relentlessly. This is not about guilt. This is about responsibility. Plastic is everywhere. You cannot avoid it completely. And you should not blame yourself for what you did not know. But now you do know. And that knowledge is a kind of power. Every habit you change, every plastic item you refuse, every reusable choice you make, adds weight to a growing global movement. It sends a message to industries. We want better. It sends a message to future generations. We cared. And it sends a message to yourself. My body, my home, my life are worth protecting. The earth is listening. So are your children. So is your body. For too long, we've treated plastic like magic. It could be anything, do anything, last forever. But now we are learning that magic always comes with a price. Plastic was never free. It was simply deferred. And that debt is coming due, inside our oceans, inside our soil, inside our lungs. The choice now is not whether we continue using plastic. The choice is whether we continue using it without thought, without limits, without care. The future is being written in every moment. By scientists, by lawmakers, by companies, and by you. Will we look back one day and say we acted too late? Or will we say, we saw the danger and we rose? We changed what we could. We demanded more. We chose differently. We protected our bodies, our families, our world. We did not look away. We looked inside and began to heal.